welcome to the channel. My name is Manny and this is Ansem's Notes, a place where we talk a little bit about personal growth, mental clarity, and learning how to live a life that feels honest. Whether you're trying to figure yourself out or hear someone else's perspective on life, this is the place for that. Today I want to talk about something I've been kind of thinking about, and it's why it's important to act on your own terms. Because if you're going to do something, make sure it's because you want it. I mean, how often do we do things for the wrong reasons? Now, I want to rephrase this into a more relatable question, being, have you ever done something because you wanted to get someone's approval or praise, or making a decision on the spot due to peer pressure? This is something like I would consider the wrong reasons. What actually got me into this topic was the quote from Greg McKeown, which goes, "If you don't prioritize your life, someone else will." And it just got me to thinking of any time that I was ever pressured into making a tough decision, which I like to think it's fewer than I can count, but I think it's still important to talk about. Now, what does that look like in our day to day? Well, it could be saying yes to plans even when you're exhausted, or choosing a career path because your family expects it, acting a certain way just to keep people around. And don't get me wrong, it's not always coming from a bad place. Sometimes we want to be supportive, sometimes we're scared to be the ones to say no because it seems like people rely on you. But if you keep living like that, it's not sustainable. And eventually you're going to even forget what your inner voice sounds like. But if you keep living like that, it's just not sustainable. And eventually you start to even forget what your own voice and opinion starts to sound like. So here's a scenario for you. I want you to picture sitting in the white room at a desk with a clipboard and a pen at hand. At the top of the page, it reads, "In your life, tell me some things that you did for," and in big capital letters, "yourself." Well, you can start thinking about all the nice things you ever did for your family or little sacrifices you had to make in order to meet other people's expectations. But the only thing you could put on the paper was, "I spent most of my evenings on TikTok and I occasionally treated myself to an Oreo Sonic Blast." It really be like that. Now, I get that there are things that are completely out of control, like when it comes to making decisions, finances, parental influence, fear of abandonment, etc. But I am a large believer that at the end of the day, our decisions are ours to make. It's this like unique free will. It's our unique free will that comes with, of course, consequences. But you know, the funny thing about consequences is that they're only as big as we make them to be. I mean, imagine all the times you've ever busted your ass to get something done because your whole world relied on it. And it turns out you didn't even need it at the end. Or even if you failed, you still had other options to make up for it. I think we tend to make these consequences bigger than they need to be. It's fine to be cautious about making rash decisions. But only you can weigh in on the repercussions, because sometimes these consequences come with unique learning experiences. Another thing about why we fear consequences, which is something I think is pretty common nowadays, and of course I'm not no stranger to this, but it's not owning up to your own mistakes. People will look in every possible direction to point the finger. I think I found myself for a long time complaining about every little thing that didn't go my way. You stack up all of your problems, and it looks like they're just weighing you down to the point that it turns into this like crippling regret that affects all your future choices at the end. But the truth is, complaining never got me ahead in life. And you can't always play that pity card game to get you out of every tough situation. A less severe example of this could be the people pleaser type. It's doing things to avoid friction or trying to stay on people's good side. The thing about this behavior is that it's honestly really toxic. And I know that word gets thrown around so easily nowadays, but sometimes, even when you're at someone's side at every event prior, and unfortunately you have to miss like the next event for them, they turn your back on you and it makes you look like the bad guy. In most cases, they don't even have anything to say. You're already overwhelmed by the guilt of meeting their expectations. So we start to talk a bit about where we recognize these patterns. But why do we do it in the first place? Well, it comes down to fear. It's fear of disappointing people, fear of being alone, fear of being labeled to be selfish or difficult. Now, it's not always obvious to realize that we have, in the end, fear because it likes to disguise itself as overthinking, procrastination. You don't want to be seen as that flaky or unreliable person. Of course, there's risk, discomfort, and judgment when it comes to when you start to feel these tiny bit of friction with other people. Now, I'm talking a lot about consequences and mistakes, which comes off a bit negatively, but it's pretty much perspective based. Most mistakes turn into learning experiences. It definitely takes time if you're willing to grow from them. If I summarize this idea, it would be don't let your mistakes turn into regrets. The truth is, there's still a lot of positives to look towards. Recognizing is the first step to getting out of any pattern. It's getting out of autopilot and embracing your life. Now, I've broken this down into a few self reflective pieces, which I think are good to look back on. First off, check in before saying yes. I've been and seen so many situations where people ask without checking first or whether you're busy or not. Ask yourself, am I doing this out of desire or out of guilt? There's literally no shame in doing either, but you need to keep track of your own actions. Learn to sit with your own discomfort. The truth is, you're not obligated to keep or maintain every relationship that you've ever had. Now, I'm not saying burn every bridge with your family because they've been teasing you for the same joke for the last 20 years. But don't be afraid to set boundaries. Not everyone's going to like your boundaries, and that's okay. You're not supposed to be for everyone. Accept that your needs are valid. Too tired to go out? That's fine. Don't feel like it? Even better, because now we're being honest. It's not selfish if you don't have the mental clarity to deal with people right now. Unless you're someone's medical provider, your needs come first. The last one, make peace with your mistakes. You're gonna mess up. You're gonna think, man, why wasn't I just there for them? If I was there, maybe we still could have been together or even on better terms. Use it as a learning experience. There's a neat quote from Carl Jung, which goes, I am not what happened to me. I am what I chose to become. If you're going to do something, make sure it's because you want to, not because someone else expects it, not because you're afraid of being left out, not because it looks good on paper and because you checked in, but because you checked in with yourself and it feels right. I'm not saying it's easy, but honestly, it's a practice that requires effort. The practice of not giving a fuck, there's levels to it. But I believe that the more we act on our own terms, the more peace we feel and the more authentic our lives become. So that's going to wrap up today's episode. If this episode made you think, or if you had your own experiences with this, I'd love to hear them. You can reach out to me through the comments or the description, and maybe we can make a future episode about it. This has been Ansem's Notes, and I'll catch you on the next one.